Not a bad place to spend a Tuesday morning, right? Sorry for the, we tried to dress it up a little bit, but this is the best we could do in such short notice. Friends, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today. This really promises to be a wonderful day. We've assembled a great number of people who we believe are great contributors to this concept, believers, innovators, thought leaders, risk takers. But before we begin the program proper, and when I'm done with my short remarks, we'll begin with a video, I really wanted to take a minute to recognize the really, and I think we can speak amongst friends here, the extraordinary cooperation we received from our bipartisan honorary co-chairs, which we'll talk about later. This is, I think, proof positive that the spirit of philanthropy and repairing the world is in fact a bipartisan issue. And as you go through the list and you'll see various names, certainly on the cover, you saw it on the invitations, you'll see the extraordinary cooperation. It's obviously something that spans the political spectrum. They were uniform in their enthusiasm of this event and supporting today's program. So I wanted to recognize that first and like to begin the day with a short video.
Good morning. Did everybody get a little breakfast? Good, because it's going to be a long day and you're going to need your energy, so glad you're here. My name is Leonard Kaplan, and I'm delighted to welcome you to this conference. I'm grateful to be with a group of people who take responsibility for their generation's response and recognize the urgency of action. Everyone here can be fairly said to engage regularly and thoughtfully with the serious challenges, I'd even call them crises, facing humanity. Frankly, I don't think we have a moment to waste. My wife Toby and I are very lucky. We have 3 married children and 10 grandchildren, one of whom is sitting on the front row. And I'm passionately concerned about the dire state of this world we're leaving them. Bottom line, that has shaped my journey in supporting solutions to world problems. Some years back, I was fortunate to have sold my business for a handsome return. In deciding what I wanted to do next, I realized that I wanted to continue to use the same creative instincts that I had developed in business. Since I also wanted to make a difference, I decided to focus on a new approach to my philanthropy, specifically creative philanthropy, and founded an organization called the Wealth and Giving Forum. Some of the people who are here tonight had the opportunity, I think, to be at those meetings. My thinking was that much more money than I could give myself would be generated for good by encouraging others of means to become more generous. And that program was successful to a point. However, we ultimately realized that our ability to reach only a few hundred of the world's wealthiest families greatly limited our success. Along the way, I learned some things about giving. One is that everything is related. Another is that there has to be a way to coax the most out of each dollar contributed. And finally, I believe that most people innately want a better and more secure world for the next generation, but don't quite know how to make that happen. This thinking brought about the Alliance for Global Good. At first, we envisioned the Alliance as both raising funds and consciousness, and also providing programs all over the world in 5 portfolio areas of concern: health, education, environment, poverty, and world relations. But we realized that the Alliance providing programs would duplicate many existing efforts. So instead, the Alliance enters into program partnerships with experienced, highly productive nonprofit organizations and foundations already in these areas. Equally important in evaluating any initiative proposed for funding, the Alliance looks for collaboration, leverage, sustainability, scale, and, of course, innovation. We actively seek to encourage and promote cooperation and collaboration among our program partners for greater impact and efficiency. But as evidenced by the theme of this conference, in many ways the Alliance perceives innovation as being a first among equals. There's a saying that if you always do what you always did, you always get what you always got. As good as our efforts and intentions may have been, We can't just do what we've always done and expect to make headway in repairing the world. Innovation is absolutely essential. Obviously, we're not talking about an innovation for its own sake. New and different by themselves aren't better. Increasing effectiveness, resources, and impact, or reducing costs, duplication, and inefficiency. That's better, and that's the kind of innovation we seek. How can we at the Alliance support a culture that cultivates and encourages this type of innovation? One answer was producing this conference and bringing together the honorary co-chairs, the extraordinary speakers, and the accomplished conference attendees to align on this common goal. And we are looking at other ways to continue today's conversation and support innovation, ways that David Brand, our president, will tell you about later in the day. Let me make one thing clear. I know that everyone in this room already supports a great many things in great many ways. The Alliance is not suggesting that you do otherwise. But in times of crisis, and I believe we're in such time, it's important to think out of the box, which comes to think of it, this is what innovation is all about. In our case, that has my wife and me seeing the resources we devoted to addressing these challenges to be part of our legacy to our grandchildren. If they therefore receive less by way of financial inheritance, hopefully they will receive more by way of a planet less in crisis. In whatever way works for you, I hope that you will do the same, and I've often heard saying, it's what we do now that matters. I want to thank everyone contributing to today's conference, our generous donors, the elected officials and their staffs, and the people here at the Library of Congress, Jeff Greenfield, the speakers, and each of you for being here and making this happen. As I said earlier, all of the challenges are in many ways related, and so too must be our response. Thanks also to our Alliance team, and in particular, the President and CEO, David Brand, whose vision and tenacity have added a great deal to the conference and to the Alliance generally. David?
Leonard, thank you. Now, my wife Bonnie knows what I've been doing the past 5 years. It's been a big, I thank you for that. Thank you, Leonard. It is, friends, it's truly an honor to work with Leonard Kaplan and to head up the Alliance for Global Good. But since we're going to be brutally honest with each other today, I don't want any of you for a minute to let that courtly Southern gentleman presentation fool you. Okay? There is no way that Leonard is that soft-spoken all the time. Lots of people are called visionary, though few have a vision as stunningly broad and as universally human as Leonard's. Particularly in a group of innovators as we are today, not being risk-averse isn't much of a distinction, but few put it on the line every day in as many ways as Leonard does. Tom Brokaw essentially wrote about Leonard in The Greatest Generation. He's not a Gates or a Buffett, but he dreams just as big. What if it's not more programs that are needed, but supporting greater level of impact from initiatives already doing great work? How can we get greater value from existing contributions and leverage it to even greater contributions? Embedded in Leonard's DNA, and he's embedded it in the heart and soul of the Alliance, is the tradition of repairing the world. For Leonard, this is not a hobby, it's not part-time, it's not in between other things, it's not a glancing duty. For Leonard, it's a 24/7 worry about the kind of world he's leaving for his children and grandchildren, and we the same. I remember my first conversation with Leonard about the Alliance and his vision for the Alliance. He said, David, the world's in crisis. We have to address pressing problems in health, the environment, poverty, world relations, and education. Great, I thought. And then he said, simultaneously. It takes a broad vision to indeed see all of these areas not as independent silos, but as intersecting realities. Broad vision, too, to address these with a novel, indeed innovative form of organization seeking to realize the maxim that the sum of the parts are greater than the whole. By bringing together exceptional organizations, initiatives, and cultivating in support of the collective impact, the Alliance promotes philanthropic efficiency and effectiveness. The word alliance is grandiose, I grant you that, but it accurately describes the relationship we seek amongst our program partners. And what an extraordinary group of program partners we have to date, and we are really looking forward to adding more. The Alliance is a new organization. In the short time we've been in business, we've accomplished much, not even including today's conference. Our website details over 30 extraordinary initiatives that we've supported already, and in fact, you can access them through various means on the website. They can be accessed by program partners. They might be expected, you can access them by health, the areas of environment, poverty, education, and so on. But they're also identifiable by geographic region. But a fourth index is just as important. In evaluating any alliance initiative proposed for funding, we ask 5 critical questions. Does the initiative involve collaboration? Does it leverage assets? Can it be scaled up? Is it sustainable? And of course, is it innovative? Ultimately, the purpose of all this is increasing the collective impact of our partners, old and new. As Leonard just said, we can't do what we've always done and expect to make headway in repairing the world. That thinking led to this conference. We recognize that innovation isn't always immediately effective. You've heard it said before that the early bird gets the worm. But let me remind you that it's the second mouse that gets the cheese. Collectively, I thought about that. That was not easy to come with. Collectively, we have a greater chance of first seeing and then realizing successful approaches, programs, and collaborations, and of course, partnerships. We have a great deal to do, so let us begin. And we really thank you for being here today. In planning this conference, there were certainly a number of highlights that we hoped for. And Congressman, I can't tell you how absolutely honored we are to be in your presence today. Ladies and gentlemen, we are truly honored to have in the room today an icon, what is truly great about being American and about being in America. To open today's proceedings, we have Congressman John Lewis representing the 5th District of Georgia. To list all of Congressman Lewis's accomplishments would, I'm sorry, Congressman, take up the entire day and probably embarrass you at the same time. But there is one thing particularly relevant to our gathering, and that is his service as the co-chair of the Congressional Caucus on Philanthropy. I know I can say for all of us, Congressman Lewis, we are honored by your presence. It is great to have you here to open our ceremonies. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Congressman John Lewis. Thank you for being here. Thank you so much. And thank Bob Brown in the audience.
Good morning. Welcome to Washington. Welcome to the members' room of the Library of Congress. David, thank you so much for those kind words of introduction. I'm delighted, very happy, and very pleased to be with you this morning as you meet here in Washington, here at the Library of Congress, during these unbelievable and challenging times. Now, you know, David didn't tell you that I didn't grow up in a big city like Washington, D.C., or Atlanta, Georgia, or New York, or Paris, or London. I grew up on a farm in rural Alabama, about 50 miles from Montgomery, outside of a little place called Troy. My father was a sharecropper, a tenant farmer, but back in 1944, when I was 4 years old, and I do remember when I was 4. How many of you remember when you was 4? Now, what happened to the rest of us? But in 1944, when I was only 4 years old, my father had saved $300, and with the $300, he bought 110 acres of land. We still own that farm. On this farm, we raise a lot of cotton and corn, peanuts, hogs, cows, and chickens. I know as wonderful, unbelievable, and smart and gifted people who believe in giving back and doing good, not just in America, but around the world. You don't know anything about raising chickens. As a little boy, it was my responsibility to care for the chickens and to raise chickens, and I fell in love with raising chickens like no one else could raise chickens. I had to take the fresh eggs, mark them with a pencil, place them under the setting hen, and wait for 3 long weeks for the little chicks to hatch. Now, some of you may be saying, now, John Lewis, why do you mark those fresh eggs with a pencil before you place them under the setting hen? Well, from time to time, another hen would get on that same nest, and there would be some more eggs, and they had to be able to tell the fresh eggs from the eggs that were already under the setting hen. Do you follow me? You don't follow me. It's okay. It's all right. When these little chicks were hatched, I would fool these setting hens. I would cheat on these setting hens. I would take these little chicks and give them to another hen, or put them in a box with a lantern and raise them on their own, get some more fresh eggs, mark them with a pencil, place them under the setting hen, encourage the setting hen to stay in the nest for another 3 weeks. I kept on fooling these setting hens and cheating on these setting hens. And when I look back on it, it was not the right thing to do. It was not the moral thing to do. It was not the most loving thing to do. It was not the most nonviolent thing to do. But I was never quite able to save $18.98 to order the most inexpensive incubator hatcher from the Cicero Buck store. Now, we used to get the Cicero Buck catalog. Any of you old enough to remember the Cicero Buck catalog, that big, thick, heavy book? Some people would call it the ordering book. Other people would call it the wish book. I wish I had this. I wish I had that. So I just kept on wishing. As a young child, about 8 or 9 years old, I wanted to be a minister. I wanted to preach the gospel. So from time to time, with the help of my brothers and sisters and first cousins, we would gather all of our chickens together in the chicken yard. And my brothers and sisters and cousins would line the side or outside around the chicken yard, but they helped make up the audience and the congregation. And I would start speaking or preaching, and when I look back on it, some of these chickens would bow their heads, some of these chickens would shake their heads. They never quite said amen. But I'm convinced that some of those chickens that I preached to in the 40s and the 50s tended to listen to me much better than some of my colleagues listen to me today in the Congress. So don't tell them that I said that. And some of those chickens were very productive. At least they produce eggs. Well, that's enough of that. Again, I would like to thank each and every one of you for being here today. I want to thank you for your dedication to making our world, not just America, but our world, a better place. Making this little spaceship, making this little piece of real estate a better place through philanthropy. As you come together today in Washington, we are aware that it would take the government and the private sector together to solve the many problems that we face as a nation and as a people and as part of the world community. Those of you in this room have the ability to help transform America, help build a better world, to help look out for all humankind. You know how to resolve some of the deepest problems in our society. The federal government here in Washington and throughout our land cannot do it alone. In fact, there are things that only you can do and the government cannot do. We count on you for your experience, especially in this great time of need. The people in America and the people around the world need your help. People are suffering. People are hurting. I remember many, many years ago when I had all of my hair and a few pounds lighter. When I first came to Washington in May of 1961, 50 years ago, to go on the Freedom Ride, we were helped along the way by community organizations and foundation grants that help us to make America a better place. I'd like to say that we accomplished what I like to call a nonviolent revolution under the rule of law, a revolution of values, a revolution of ideas that changed our nation for the better. And we did it without fax machines and cell telephone or Facebook. We had never heard of the internet. With all of that you have at your disposal today, you can make a difference for the poorest, the neediest people in our nation, even where the government has failed. I know that the work you do here today will help us build what I like to call the beloved community, a war community, at peace with itself. We look forward to your continued and ongoing work, knowing that we all live in the same house. It's not just the American house, but it's the world house. Maybe as a nation and as a people, our foremothers and our forefathers all came to this great land in different ships, but we're all in the same boat now. We must look out for each other, not just for the citizens and the people who dwell on our own little piece of real estate, but people from around the world. I'd like to tell one little story, and I'll be finished. When I was growing up outside of Troy, Alabama, 50 miles from Montgomery, I had an aunt by the name of Seneva. And my Aunt Seneva lived in what we call a shotgun house. I know what I'm talking about because I was born in a shotgun house. I know you don't know what I'm talking about. You've never seen a shotgun house. My Aunt Seneva didn't have a green manicured lawn, had a simple plain dirt yard. And sometime at night, you can look up through the holes in the ceiling, through the holes in the tin roof, and count the stars. When it would rain, she would get a pail, a bucket, or a tub and catch the rainwater. From time to time, she would walk out into the woods and cut branches from a dogwood tree and tie these branches together and make a broom, and she would call that broom the breast broom. And she would sweep this dirt yard very clean, sometimes 2 and 3 times a week, but especially on a Friday or Saturday, because she wanted that dirt yard to look very good during the weekend. For those of you who may not know what a shotgun house is, in the nonviolent sense, a shotgun house, an old house, one way in, one way out, where you can bounce a basketball through the front door, and it will go straight out the back door. But one Saturday afternoon, a group of my brothers and sisters and a few of my first cousins, about 12 or 15 of us young children, were out playing in my Aunt Seneva dirt yard. And an unbelievable storm came up. The wind started blowing, the thunder started rolling, the lightning started flashing, and the rain started beating on the tin roof of this old shotgun house. My aunt became terrified. She started crying. She thought this old house was going to blow away. She got all of us little children together and told us to hold hands, and we did as we were told. The wind continued to blow, the thunder continued to roll, the lightning continued to flash, and the rain continued to beat on the tin roof of this old shotgun house. And we cried, because we thought the house was going to blow away. And when one corner of this old house appeared to be lifting from its foundation, my aunt had us to walk to that corner to try to hold the house down with our little bodies. When the other corner appeared to be lifting, she had us to walk to that side. We were little children walking with the wind, but we never left the house. As members of the independent sector, as members of the private sector, as members of the giving section or the foundation community, the wind may blow, the thunder may roll, the lightning may flash, and the rain may beat on our old house. But you have an obligation, you have a mission and a mandate to do what you can to help hold our little trimming house together, not just the American house, but the world house, not just the house of Washington or New York, but also the house of Africa, Asia, and Europe. South America, we all live in the same house. We're one people. We're one family. We're one house. And in America, it doesn't matter whether we're black or white, Latino or Asian American or Native American. We're one people. We're one family. We're one house. Do what you can to help hold our trimming house together. We're depending on you. Don't give up. Don't give in. Don't give out. Keep the faith and keep your eyes on the prize. And again, thank you for being here.